Hey there, Mr. Witherow here. Today we're going to talk about factor by grouping. This is the very first time that we're going to actually get into factoring out something that's more than just one little term. It's easy to see grouping because it has four terms. So we're going to split them up, right? So we got one term, two terms, three terms, and four terms. And if it's in standard form, which means that it's the highest exponent goes first and then it goes downhill. That's what you're looking for. Highest exponent goes first, right? And then downhill from there, down to the constant. So what happens here is that then we split it up. So we're going to look at these two, and then we're going to look at these two. And then we're going to see what happens there. We're going to factor a couple different times, all right? So first one, let's take a look at this. So if we have this here, we have 2x this third plus 8x squared plus 3x plus 12. So what we're going to do is that we're going to break this in half here. We're just going to look at the first two terms. So what does a 2 and an 8 have in common? They have a 2. Oh, sorry, don't do that. 2. And then x to the third and x squared, they have an x squared in common. Now what's left over? So again, you're going to take this and you're going to divide both of these by this. So just do it mentally here. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and then you're going to subtract the exponents. 3 minus 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 2 over 2 minus 2 is gone. So that's what's left over here. So this one here breaks down to here. Then put your plus sign. Now, what does a 3x and a 12 have in common? They have a 3. They don't have x in common because this one doesn't have x, so that's the only thing they have in common. And then divide. 3 by 3 is 1, so you're left over with x. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Now, look closely at what's left over here. What's left over is that these both have x plus 4. So since they both have x plus 4, we write that down. So this is what they have in common times what they don't have in common. So that would be 2x squared plus 3. So what they have in common is the x plus 4. What they don't have in common is this stuff that's on the outside. So you just write down what it says. All right, so then this is the factor. The fact, if we would multiply these two things, we would come up with this thing right here. This is the product. These are the two things that we're multiplying together to get this thing. All right, so then if you look at this problem, all right, same type of thing, but this one has a little difference here because there's a minus sign here, so we have to be really super careful with this. I'll show you that. All right, so let's take a look at these two. If we take a look at these two terms, right, we can see a 5 and a 15, so they must have a 5 in common. And then the b to the fourth and b to the third, remember we want the smallest one, so we take out a b to the third. Then what's left over? 5 over 5 is gone, 4 minus 3 is 1, minus 15 divided by 5 is 3, 3 minus 3 is gone, all right? So there we go. Now, the second part, right, we have to factor out this is a -1 and this is a +3. -1b, +3b. But on the inside here, we have a minus. So we have to be able to take out a -1. If we take out a -1, right, then negative divided by negative is a positive. And so that's a +b. And a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So now we have something in common, b minus 3. So b minus 3, and then what don't they have in common? That's these two things. 5b to the third minus 1. So whenever there's a minus sign here, that means that you're going to take out a negative, which makes this switch. So make sure you practice that. Maybe pause it or rewind the tape and watch me do that again, because this is where a lot of kids will make that mistake. They won't take this negative out and they'll have a positive one here and there's nothing in common. Make sure if there's a negative here, you're going to take out a negative. All right? And last but not least is the one that says that it has to be in standard form. So if it has to be in standard form, that means we have to rewrite this problem. So for us to rewrite this problem, we have to identify who has the highest exponent. That looks like it's this term, and then this term, and then this term, and then finally this term. Okay? So that means it's 12x to the third plus 21x squared plus 4x plus 7. That's what we're looking at. All right? So now, what do these two have in common? What does a 12 and a 21 have in common? What I always do is I always take 12 and see if it goes into 21. Nope, it doesn't. All right? So then the next 6, right? 6 goes into 12. Does 6 go into 21? No. How about 4? 4 goes into 12, but doesn't go into 21. How about 3? 3 goes into 12, and 3 goes into 21. There's our winner. So we're going to take a 3 out, and then we're going to take the x squared out because that's the smallest one. So what's left over? 12 divided by 3 is a 4. 3 minus 2 is a 1. Plus 21 divided by 3 is 7, and 2 minus 2 is 0. It's gone. So then there's that. And then 4x plus 7. What do they have in common? Does 4 go into 7? No. Does 2 go into 7? Well, 2 goes into 4, but doesn't into 7. So the only one that this goes into is a 1. That's the greatest common factor. So what's left over? 4x plus 7. Because look, here's this and here's this. So that's what they have in common, is the 4x plus 7. What don't they have in common is the 3x squared plus the 1. So then that's your answer. I highly recommend that make sure you go back and review this while you're doing the work that I'm asking you to do. All right? Have a good one.